can teach someone anything, but if they're not learning it, it doesn't matter what I'm teaching them, right?
Take the general conference talks and make them specific conference talks.
None of them are going to walk out of there and be like, that guy got through that lesson today.
Man, he got it. Super boring, super general, very simplistic.
Yeah.
I hate him. We don't want him.
We should make Elders Quorum more like nursery. We'll get it better.
Honestly.
And now let us reason together.
Welcome back to Salty Saints. My name is Hayden Holm. Today I'm joined by my brother Tanner, and we have a special guest, Justin Keat. First and foremost, after watching the reaction from our last video, it did a lot better than I thought it was going to do, and it made me feel like Professor Harold Hill from The Music Man, because apparently we've got trouble with a capital T that rhymes with E that stands for Elders Quorum. And Justin is here to help us figure out how we can make Elders Quorum discussions great again. So, Justin, could you give us a little bit of background, your background? What callings have you had? What kind of teaching experience that you've had? First off, before you get in there, I'm sorry. Let me just say I know Justin because he was one of the best Elders Quorum instructors I've ever had. He's been in one of my wards, and I looked forward to his lessons. I was always excited to participate, and so I asked him to come on and reveal some of his secret formula, some of his hacks. Justin, go ahead, give us a little bit of your background.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that, man. That's sure nice of you. I apparently have you bamboozled there too, so it's, not too difficult to win over some hearts in the Elders Quorum, apparently. So. My background is in education. I'm a high school principal right now. I've been a principal for 6 years. I was the assistant principal before that. And then I was a teacher for 8 years. I taught middle and high school. And I taught driver's ed. So for 7 years, I taught German and history, driver's ed. Nothing scares me anymore. Every last nerve I ever had was fried. So yeah, you want some exciting times, go in the car with some 15 and 16-year-olds and drive around.
And you're dressed up tonight because you are chaperoning a dance. It's not because of us. He told us when we got onto the call, he was like, it's not you. We got to dance. Okay. So
we got a senior ball after this, which is crazy exciting. So
yeah.
And in the church, I'm currently in a bishopric in the ward that Hayden used to be in. We were in the same ward. So I'm the first counselor in the bishopric right now over the Elders Quorum. So I feel strongly about this subject too, and I've enjoyed some of the past episodes about Elders Quorum. They've been just spot on. So just want to take a minute as a viewer to thank you two, Hayden and Tanner, for bringing this to the masses. The past episodes have just been fantastic and spot on, and they really inspired me and a lot of people. So you're doing some good things here. So I'm really honored to be here. I've been a bishopric. I've been the Elders Quorum president before. I've taught Elders Quorum for a lot of years. I was a Sunday school president before I was in the bishopric. Just a lot of colleagues. I've been in the young men's. I was in the stake young men's presidency for a little while.
Yeah.
I was in a YSA bishopric. That was awesome and interesting. When I first got there, I was like, what is YSA? And I was so out of my element. It was crazy. And I was in there for 3.5 years through COVID, and it was awesome. It was so much fun. Probably my favorite calling. And then when I got back into the regular ward, I was like, oh man, it smells like diapers and kids are loud. and I was like, oh, we have no budget here. There was so much budget in the YSA.
Yeah.
It was fun. I wanted to go back. So if you get a chance to work in the YSA, dive all over that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's my background.
So you've got a ton of experience serving in the church.
I love teaching. Yeah, I work with teachers every day professionally to help them be more engaging. And I was telling Tanner this before, honestly, when I'm looking to hire a teacher, we're looking for the type of personality that can engage people in learning, can engage kids in learning. And you can translate that. What we do as educators, you may have some educators out there watching this and they'll relate, but anybody can do this and be an engaging teacher. And so if you can do that, I don't care what your background is, what you teach, you can stay a day ahead of the students. I'm going to put you in and put you in front of kids. Cause if you know how to be engage kids in learning, then you're going to be a fantastic teacher. So
that's a really good point. So what
Yep.
does that personality look like? So how can like the average Elders Quorum presidency identify that personality?
Yeah, that's a good question. I really believe anybody can teach, but you've got some people that are just naturally comfortable leading a discussion. You guys hit on that in your last episode, and so if you haven't watched that, maybe you should go watch that before this because you guys teed this up really nicely with the discussion around you're really leading a discussion instead of just don't think of it as teaching, it's leading a discussion. So anyone, what it looks like is someone who's comfortable in front of people leading a discussion, who can do a few of the things we'll talk about today to really engage people in
So
learning.
someone that doesn't need paper slips as a crutch, you
Yeah.
know, doesn't need
Paper
to
slips
manufacture engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the old manual isn't rescuing you anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
No.
Manual was like, read this. And someone who can just focus on what you want the audience, what you want the people in your Elders Quorum to learn.
Yeah.
Because we'll talk a little about the difference between what's being taught and what's being learned, and those are two different things.
Yeah, so let's break it wide open. So what changes? What did you do differently as an Elders Quorum instructor? I remember there were things like you would have great PowerPoint slides that you would show, and they weren't like, you didn't try and cram an entire lesson onto the slide with like 18 lines and like a bunch of animations and like 4 or 5 different clip art, images or anything like that. There was like 3 bullet points, and it was just questions every single time. So can you get into that a little bit? Like what was your formula for those discussions?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like a PowerPoint, I'm not a tech guy at all. So if I can do it, you can do it. I can barely open my email. I'm not a tech guy. So a simple PowerPoint, I feel like keeps the attention up front and where you want it and on topic too. Keeps you on topic, keeps you moving through the lesson, and it keeps people kind of paid attention where they want and where you want them to be paid, where you want their attention, I guess. So and a few bullet points, because you don't want to get too complex or have a lot to read. Just real simple bulleted points. I mean, it's the Elders Quorum, right? So we're going to keep this simple. We're going to keep it on point, and you want to stay on point with things. So a couple little things that I could offer as pro tips that would help. It would be fun to get into, and that's what I'm looking forward to talking about here. But as you're planning lessons, you really need to think about, I like to think about what kind of a lesson would I want to sit through, right?
Yeah.
And be involved in. And it's got to be something that grabs their attention and that makes them a little bit uncomfortable. Some guys want to go to Elders Quorum and just like zone out and sit there, pull their phone out, check sports scores or whatever.
I think everybody's guilty of that. Yeah.
Guilty stuff for sure. But and some people may not want to be super engaged either, but I think that's what they're there for, and we need to really harness that energy too. I think that your episodes have inspired me too. A couple weeks ago, and actually in Elders Quorum, we were actually changing Elders Quorum presidents, and I stood up and because of listening to your podcast, I said, hey, I just want to say, I was giving the old Elders Quorum a chance to spare their testimony, say a few words, and then have the new Elders Quorum president say something. And I felt inspired and took a minute just to say, hey, I want you brethren to know there's a lot of power in this group. There's a lot. This is the heartbeat of our ward. There's a lot of power. There's a lot of good in this group. And this is it's really important that we're together, that we have a connection, that we have each other's backs, and that we are taking this time to really connect with one another and help each other out. So I just felt like I said that was from you guys.
That's
so
awesome. Well, and how did they react to that? Because I don't know a single Elders Quorum that has been told you guys are the heartbeat of the ward.
Yeah.
I think everyone is like, if you were to ask the random person, like, what is the heartbeat organization of the ward? I think they'd be like, well, probably Relief Society, probably Relief Society.
Be okay. And I even said that too. I said, hats off to the women in the ward. We know they're just amazing. And, I know the Relief Society is just and the women in the ward are going to be right on point what they need to. And we're going to, we're always trying to kind of keep up. But I just said, this is the priesthood, right? There's so much power here. And I felt like they needed to hear that this group is so important to this ward, and the opportunity we have here to engage you guys in this lesson, and in the lessons, make connections, help each other, be there for each other, do good in this ward, and not just show up here and kind of passively sit and let the time go by and then go home. That's not going to work anymore.
Yeah.
So I felt like they need to hear that. And I think just like students here at school, they will rise to the challenge, right? They're going to rise to the level that you tell them they're at, right? You tell them they're great. You tell them there's a lot of power here, and you tell them that, you expect some engagement here in the lesson, and we're going to dig into this. We're going to have a discussion. Then they'll step up to that. They'll step up to that. I know they will.
I
agree. I think maybe they're just looking for that invitation too. Maybe as a teacher, you need to just, have the courage, or as Elders Quorum president, say, hey, there's a lot of need, a lot of power, a lot of good in this group, and we need to really tap into that.
Yeah. As I was reading through some of the comments, I noticed that there seemed to be a common thread, like a common mentality, where it was like, hey, I would do a lot of prep work as a teacher, but I was not getting any responses from these people, and so, like, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how enthusiastic I was as a teacher, or how interesting I tried to make the lesson, people just would not engage. So how do we get engagement from the average Elders Quorum? What are your thoughts?
Okay, a couple things here, and jump in at any point here too. So let's make this a good discussion, and I'm excited to talk about this because these are simple things that any teacher can do that's going to skyrocket your engagement, I promise. First of all, focus. You've got to start when you're planning your lessons. You need to focus on what's being learned versus what's being taught. I think a lot of teachers focus on getting through the material, right?
Totally.
How many lessons, Tanner, Hayden, think about your teaching opportunities. You're like, I got to get through this. I don't know what's going on or where the discussion's going on. We got to finish, right?
Right. Well, they pick one conference talk and they're like, I got to get through all of the paragraphs in this conference talk. Okay. They're not going to read themselves. We have to read them before that clock hits, or else I have failed in my calling. Right.
Right. And so some teachers will just skyrocket through that lesson there. And it's not about getting through the material. It's not even about what you're teaching. I can teach someone anything, but if they're not learning it, it doesn't matter what I'm teaching them, right?
Right.
Like I teach my dog to speak Spanish. I don't have a dog, but just as an example.
If you did, yeah.
But if I did, and I could do a good job teaching that. And if he's not learning Spanish, who cares what I'm teaching? I'm not really teaching anything, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know that a lot of teachers think about that, but think about, what do you want them to learn? What do you want them to learn in Elders Quorum? What's being learned here? So what's being taught doesn't matter if nothing's being learned.
Now that's really important, because I think that goes right in line with the handbook, because the handbook said, like, Elders Quorum presidency should counsel about one or more or topics from one or more general conference talks. And so I think a lot of presidencies' tradition, the culture, tells them, like, oh, I do one talk per lesson, and that's what I should do. And this is saying, no. The handbook is actually saying it's a topic that you pull out of the talk. You don't have to teach the talk. Teach the topic that was in the talk. Reference the talk, pull a quote out, and you can take it wherever you want, as long as it's a topic that's relevant to your quorum.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So what do you want them to walk out of there having learned that day? And keep it simple. It shouldn't be more than 3 things, maybe maximum, right? 1 or 2 or 3 things. If you have like 5 things and you're like, they got to know this, and it's too much. It's too much. You got to simplify it, right? So keep it simple. Keep it focused on what's being learned. What do you want them to learn? So in education, we call this, backwards design. So this is how you plan lessons when you're teaching, 30 high school kids or whatever. You're going to focus on what do I want the Elders Quorum to learn, and then you plan your lesson backwards from that. So everything you do, and every scripture, every talk that you reference, every video you show, every question you ask should really point back to what do you want them to learn. Right. So you've got to start there, and then you design your lesson backwards from there. Does that make sense?
So it's one topic, and then everything else that you pull should just support that topic. So it's kind of like a pyramid. So the topic is at the very top, and then you have supporting quotes, you have scriptures, you have videos, you have whatever you need to get that across, in an engaging way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of material out. There's a lot of material out there, right? So if you have three things, like two or three main things you're trying to teach, and you want them to learn in a lesson, then you're gonna shift at some point and have, okay, I want them to learn this and I want them to learn this. So everything you do is going to point back to that, and then those two topics that are critical for you to make sure that that's what's being learned here. Or if it's one thing or three things, just please don't do more than three things. So everything you do should come back to that, and that helps keep you on target too. There's so much out there. There's so many videos. There's so much material.
Yeah.
But you need to really run it through that filter. If it's not relevant to what I want them to learn, then leave it out. You don't need to do it.
And how do you know whether a topic is relevant to the quorum or not? Sorry for stepping on your lines there, Tanner. But what are your thoughts? How do you pick a topic that is actually relevant to the men in the quorum? Tanner, what are your thoughts on this?
Well, that was actually my question to Justin, and what I was really wondering if we could step through an actual example. Let's say that you've gotten assigned to talk about the Book of Mormon, right, as a topic in church. Walk me through that process of what does it mean when you say you should focus on what they should learn rather than what you should teach, given the topic you've given was the Book of Mormon in that example.
Right.
You talk us through that?
Yeah, so if the Book of Mormon is the topic for the lesson, for example, then I need to, as a teacher, sit and think about, okay, what do I want them to learn in this lesson today about the Book of Mormon? And as a teacher, you should have the autonomy to decide that. I think you need to stay on solid ground with the doctrine, right? With good doctrine. Don't go
totally
don't go too. You can get out there. So, and don't let other people in your lesson take it somewhere it's not supposed to go either. That's a whole different. That's a pro tip down here I want to hit too when people are hijacking your lesson. But for example, I might focus on how. What I want them to learn is how the Book of Mormon strengthens my testimony, or something. How daily reading the Book of Mormon strengthens my testimony,
or something like how the Book of Mormon applies to fathers, right? It's how do you apply that to the average father? Why should the average father care about the Book of Mormon? Maybe that's the topic.
Yep. Well, that's what I want them to walk out of there going, okay, I'm an average father in the church, right? And I want them to walk out of there going, hey, daily immersion in the Book of Mormon is going to help me as a father in these two or three ways.
Yeah.
Spiritually or whatever. And so then I design the lesson backwards from there. So I have, quotes from maybe a conference talk or a scripture that supports that, or we're going to ask some questions. I'd specifically design some questions that are going to generate the right discussion, that's going to put everything back on target with what I want them to learn right there. So nothing off topic there, right? So you're keeping things flowing, and everything you're doing is back to that.
Well, that is to your point there. I've always been taught that you should pray and you should seek personal revelation when teaching. If you're focusing on in this approach, and that's exactly where personal revelation falls in, is you should be focusing on what your quorum should learn from this, right? What you want them to learn. Because I've sat there before as a younger man and all right, I have to teach about tithing. What revelation am I supposed to receive about tithing? If you're focusing on the content and the doctrine, you don't need revelation in terms of what to teach per se, because all the content is there, right? All the instruction and course material is there on that topic. Right. But if you pivot back and say, what should these people who I should know better, what do they need to learn from this? Then that's where revelation can bridge that gap and help you teach better, right?
That is, and you need to ask yourself that question as a teacher. That's a great point, Tanner. So you should say, okay, what do I want them to learn? And that's what you're praying about as the teacher. And teachers, you teachers out there, have confidence that you've been called to do this. The Lord will qualify you. He'll inspire you. He'll put things in your mind and in your heart. And if you prayerfully approach that, what do I need these what do I need these elders to learn this week about tithing in this lesson? And once you've got that, then build it backwards from there. This is what I want you to learn.
Yeah.
So don't just, if you'll just forget getting through the material, and even if you're assigned a conference talk, for example, okay, I got to get through the conference talk. No. You need to read the conference talk and pray about, okay, what's the 1 or 2 things that I need them to get out of this conference talk, and then build it from there.
Totally.
There's a big difference. A big difference there.
That's huge.
So
I mean, I think, like, as if I understand you correctly, it seems like a lot of people have been taking these general conferences, because this was a big vein of comments in that video that was just like, the general conference talks are super boring, super general, very simplistic. I hate them. We don't want them. But if I understand this correctly, it's saying take the general conference talks and make them specific conference talk to your quorum.
It's not about getting through the talk. That's just getting through the material. That's focusing on teaching. It's what is the person that gave that talk?
Yeah. What's the underlying principle? And then it's on you to convey that and apply it.
Figure that out you figure that out as a teacher. Then you exercise your autonomy and tap into your spiritual revelation. You're right as being called as a teacher to say, hey, God, you've called me to teach. I know this. This is the topic. This is what I want these folks to learn. What do I need to focus on in this talk? And then supporting scriptures or from other talks or videos or whatever it is that are going to help them learn that, not get through the talk.
Yeah.
What do I want them to learn? That'll change your lesson right there, and change you as a teacher. You'll naturally have a more engaging lessons because you're focused on the right things, right?
Yeah.
Focused on the right things.
That's great.
No, none of your students, none of your elders quorum. Sorry, I'm going to say students a lot.
No, go for it. Yeah.
So one of the brethren in your elders quorum, substitute students for brethren in elders quorum, none of them are going to walk out of there and be like, man, that lesson, like that guy got through that lesson today.
Man, he got it.
He crossed the finish line.
I had my doubts, but he hit every slip of paper.
Yeah, no, that doesn't move the needle, right? You're gonna do much better if you're like, wow, I really learned how daily immersion in the Book of Mormon helps me as a father, and we had some great discussion around that, and that was the whole point of that talk, and that was a good lesson. It'll be engaging, it'll be memorable, and the Spirit you'll hit the right notes, and you'll hit the right buttons with the Spirit when you're focused on what do you want them to learn.
Well, yeah,
nobody's going to walk away from there going, glad you got through the lesson today. That was
well, and here's another shift that I think we should make is, like, I think we should, like, a bishopric, they are asked to say, like, hey, don't just give one talk for a speaker. When you're coordinating, like, sacrament speakers, they say give them multiple resources so that they don't just skew towards one talk and then they just re-give that talk. We don't want to just regurgitate talks. They did a great job with those talks. They don't need to be re-given, but we want to hear your thoughts and your takeaways.
Right. And I had a thought here. I'll bring this up, and this could open a whole new can of worms. So just
go for it.
Let it be what it is here.
Yeah.
But so think about, this is my slight beef with sacrament meeting talks too, is they're not super engaging because we don't get to teach with questions or get a discussion going and whatever.
Right.
Like that's like, can you imagine a sacrament meeting talk that was like, all right, and I'll go through some of these tips, like doing this, like, I want to have a discussion here, right? I'm going to ask some questions and I want to blah, blah. Like the engagement would go way up, right? Look around in the meeting. I'm in the bishopric. I'm up on the stand. I can see the either engagement or the non-engagement going on from the 250 or 300 people that are there. And it's palpable. Like you can see it.
Yeah.
So, and I know there's maybe some talk about 1 hour church. I don't even want to get into that or anything, but like we're there for the sacrament and then move on to the social, super engaging connection stuff. And I'm not, in my heart of hearts, it's not always in the sacrament meeting talks. Sometimes, and there's some great speakers, and I don't want to take anything away from that. I'm not dissing on the rest of the sacrament meeting.
Right.
Sacrament meeting speakers, so please don't send me hate mail for that or anything. Like I love it. And there's some great speakers there, but it's not it's not really engaging, right? It's not super
Right.
engaging. And it takes a real special speaker to kind of hold people's attention for when sacrament meetings over, usually got 30, 40 minutes there, right? And you have two speakers, right, to hold their attention, and they get nervous about it, right? They get, it's like, oh, I got 20 minutes. I got this better be good, and I've got to pull out the dogs and ponies here, and and it's
totally,
you really need to be prepared and have, and good public speakers know how to engage people, for 20 minutes where there's not discussion. It's so much easier as a teacher, like that connection and that discussion is so
that back and forth
valuable that they walk away from that, right?
Totally.
So there's a lot of magic in that lesson there. All right.
I love that. So, but the idea wasn't necessarily a cultural call out on sacrament speakers, although that may be coming, but
no, I was just
but the idea is like pulling out those.
Imagine an engaging sacrament talk where there was some, it would be hard to do because there's just too many people, right? That's why you have smaller classes. But
here's a controversial take
that's why the sacrament talks that you remember are fewer and farther between, because they're just less engaging. That's all I'm saying. So.
Well, I think the church has been saying, like, hey, if there's a person who is good at speaking, feel free to call them up multiple times, because another tradition, and we'll get this in a later episode, but there is a tradition out there of like everyone has to have a turn, and it's like some people shouldn't have a turn. There are some people that are no.
All right, I don't want to get too far off on that.
But the idea is like, you give them multiple topics so that they can figure things out. So it's like they don't just skew towards one conference talk. If we did that in Elders Quorum, give them multiple talks and say, here are this is the topic. It's covered in these talks. Pull that topic out and apply it to these men.
Yeah, and do that when you get assigned to speak in sacrament meeting. Do the same thing. Think about what the topic is you've been assigned, and do the backwards design thing. Pray about what I want these people to learn. Yeah. What do I want to walk away from here? Even though you don't get to have a discussion or teach with questions too much, you can still build your sacrament talk that way. So it is more as engaging as you can make it without a discussion and a lot of questions there. So, all right,
let's get into these other pro tips. So first one,
you design it that way. So you're going to backwards design. You're going to focus on what's being learned versus what's being taught.
Yeah.
So just you're on the right track there. All right, I want to bring up a new thing, and I want people to try this. And I have yet to see this. This happens all the time at the school that I work at.
Yeah.
And engagement skyrockets when you do this simple thing. And I've yet to see this at church, and I'm super excited to challenge teachers and to talk about this. But there are studies that support this. Be prepared enough with your lesson that you can stand outside the door and greet every single brother as they come in.
Really
interesting.
Have you seen that yet?
No,
I don't think I ever have. Yeah.
You come to my school here and walk around the halls at passing times in class. You'll see nearly every teacher out in the hall welcoming kids in. Fist bump, high five, handshakes, whatever. Can you imagine in your Elders Quorum, right out the gate, what it says to the brethren that are coming to your lesson and the engagement? You're standing outside the door, shaking hands, fist bumping, high-fiving those guys in. Welcome. Super excited to see you. Welcome. You have an immediate connection. And there's actually a study that they showed with this, and I share this with my teachers at school. The simple act of standing outside the door and greeting people as they come into your lesson, engagement goes up by 70%.
70.
So if you're a teacher and you want to bank on a minimal 70%, like I'll take that. Okay, if I can get 70% engagement in my lesson, I'm stoked. Then that's all you need to do.
So why do you think it is that just greeting them at the door is leading to 70% engagement? Is it because they feel like they have a personal connection with the teacher, and it's like, that makes me want to engage with this person because I view them now as a friend?
Yep, you're engaging with them right out the gate. You're making a connection. You're setting it up. You're teeing up engagement right out the gate, right? You're setting it up for that. You're making immediate connection with every one of those brethren. And what it speaks to them is a couple things. I think it says this teacher is prepared because they can stand out there. They're not over there fumbling with trying to get the TV on.
The IT issues,
yeah, I'm hurting, highlighting a couple last minute things, looking up the scripture, keeping up my talk. Like get that done. Like stand out, or let them do that while some other brother's making the announcements and picking someone, have your elders quorum, but be outside of the door, greeting every one of those guys into your elders quorum lesson. It'll blow them away. They're going to wonder what's going on.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
They're going to think something's wrong. But it's awesome.
Yeah.
But you think about it. So it tells me this teacher cares. He's prepared. He's excited to be here. He's trying to make a connection, and he wants me to engage in this lesson. Boom.
So it's sending a message.
That's great.
It sends a message. It's communicating non-verbally, maybe verbally as well, but mostly non-verbally. It's presenting a lot of messages to the brethren of that they care. That's the main one. It's like, I care about you. And because what is the average Elders Quorum teacher experience? From my experience, not saying all Elders Quorum teachers are this way, but my experience is half the time the guy who was assigned to teach forgot that it was his turn. And so he gets up there, he's like, all right, honestly, I forgot it was my turn, but I think the talk today is from this sister talking. The talk is Sisters in Zion. So can I get a volunteer for the first paragraph, and they just go around the room. Yeah,
exactly. Well, think about what the teacher is normally doing when you wander in.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're doing what you just described, right?
Like that sign, that sends a signal of I don't really care. Don't care about you. Didn't care enough to prepare. Didn't care enough to even think about this before 5 seconds ago.
I'm still prepping my materials. I'm fussing around with stuff. I'm getting the tech going. Getting the technology queued up. Whatever. Lean on the Elders Quorum presidency for that.
Yeah,
they're there. They're there to start the thing, to ask who's saying the opening and closing prayer. And here's a couple announcements. You be out in the hall. Be right there at the door. And I want people to try this. I would love to hear the comments on this through the coming weeks. Stand outside the door. You'll blow people away. And greet every one of those brethren as they come in. Engagement will go out the roof.
So it's kind of I've had a lot of great nurseries for my kids in the past. And one thing that they do this exact same thing. They leave sacrament meeting about 5 to 10 minutes early, and they go and they prepare the nursery room. They get everything ready to go. They get the snacks. They get all of the kids their pictures up on the door so that when they come in, they grab their picture and all of that. And I mean, it leads to an amazing nursery experience where the teachers are cool, calm, collected. The kids are going to be crazy, but the craziness is contained. The chaos is controlled.
That's funny that you're saying that we should make Elders Quorum more like nursery. We'll get it better.
Honestly though, hey, bring in snacks.
Why did we get away
control?
From that, right?
Yeah.
Just larger kids in the Elders Quorum. That's it.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That's it. Well, to your point, I think that greeting them at the door is also another opportunity for you as a teacher to use personal revelation, because you could actually ask them as they're coming in, hey, I want you to comment on this. I need your help on this specific part of the talk, right? You can shake their hand and say, I'm going to need your support today as I'm giving my lesson. So can I count on you to participate? You can actually call them forth right there as you're greeting them, right? And engage them. So that's awesome. Yeah, I really like that. I love
that comment, Tanner, too. It's at minimum, it's a positive connection, an immediate engagement. It sends the message that I care about you. I'm glad you're here. And I want you to participate, and makes a connection at the minimum. And they're going to be blown away. They're going to be, and you as the teacher will probably meet a lot of guys in your Elders Quorum that you maybe didn't know or haven't met. And that's what you want anyway, right? That's what we want out of this group. So 100%. Do that. That's a huge. I'm excited for people to try this and get back in the comments, because I want to. It would be cool to see that. But try that. That is a simple thing, and the message it sends is huge. Stand outside the door, greet everyone as brethren coming in.
Awesome.
Boom.
Okay.
Awesome.
What's the next?
All right. Couple other things. So remember, we talked a little bit about managing a discussion. So as you're planning your lesson, make sure that you have a healthy amount of questions in there. You should be constantly asking questions, right? Because questions are naturally engaging. Stay away from yes/no questions. Nobody wants that. That's for the youth planning meeting, right?
That's right. Oh, well, that was all of the youth Sunday school lessons.
Right.
It seemed like there were so many of those, and even so much that Elder Bednar gave a cultural call out. He said the let's play the guess what's in my head game. Alma the Younger was a.
Right.
And then someone's like, prophet? It's well, yeah, he was a prophet, but that's not what I meant. It's well, what was he? What is he? It's just I don't know. What's in your head?
keep them open-ended. And as a teacher, this is a really tough thing too. Like when you're asking a question, ask and like sit with it for a second, okay? Like ask your question and let there be some uncomfortable silence for a minute, right? What's happening is people are thinking. Let it happen. So many teachers will ask a question, especially with the youth. And when there's silence, they start panicking. Oh,
Yeah.
saying anything. And then what do? You rescue them, right?
Yeah.
You'll answer for them, or you'll do what you just said. All right, or you'll start calling on someone, right? Resist the urge to do that. So leave the question open-ended and sit in silence and let it sit there for a minute. That's a powerful moment in a lesson. Honestly, usually they're thinking about what you want them to think about, and let it happen. And it takes a second, but it's super uncomfortable as a teacher to sit there. So have a good amount of questions, ask your questions, and keep them open-ended, and then sit there for a minute.
So what do you say to those people
Amazing.
that will do that, but then they get like the same two high priests that answer all the questions? Like they're like, no, I can't do that. No, I'm uncomfortable with the silence, so I will jump in. And they just like ping pong it back and forth between each other, and everyone else knows like if I wait long enough, that guy's gonna take it, and I don't have to do anything.
Good. So I'm going to teach you one more. This is my biggest pro tip of the whole thing here, and this is going to help out so much with that right now. So. Here's what you do. So what you want, this helps that. And then I want to talk about that a little bit more, because that happens. We all know that happens. There's the same couple brethren, bless their hearts, that just have to talk, have to comment, and their hand's gonna shoot up every time. So I'm gonna give you a pro tip here, and then we'll go back to talk about that. All right. So ask your questions. Remember, you're managing that discussion. Let the questions sit and let them think for a minute. Okay. So this strategy I'm going to share with you. In the educational world, we call this a think, pair, share. All right. Sounds a little Dr. Seussy or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
Think,
think, pair, share. So you're asking your question, and the first part is think. And that's what I just told you need to do. You need to let them think. That's important. Don't rescue them. Don't answer for them. Let it sit for a minute. Here's the question I'm asking you. Think about it for a second. And you might have to coach them a little bit through this and tell them, just think about it, okay?
Yeah.
And then the pair part, and this is huge for engagement. This is probably the best tip I could give you for engagement. Now what you're going to say is, I'm going to give you 60 seconds, or I'm going to give you 2 minutes to discuss with the person you're sitting next to. Sometimes at school we call it your shoulder buddy. That might be a little goofy for Elders Quorum, but whatever.
Yeah.
The person you're sitting next to, I just asked you a question. I want you to think about it. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to discuss that with the person you're sitting next to. Ready, go. And everyone's going to go, come on. I got the guy I'm sitting next to. Yep, you do. You do. So I want you to think about this. Then you let them discuss it for the 1 or 2 minutes. Keep it short. And that discussion that's happening there is so good. You know what's happening right now? Everyone in your lesson is talking about exactly what you want them to talk about. There is 100% engagement happening right now. And I want to show you, I want to point out the difference between that, and I'm going to ask a question of the group here. Who can tell me, can anyone tell me the answer to this question? Can I get someone to raise their hand and tell me? No, because what happens now? The same guy's hand shoots up that always does.
Yeah.
Or maybe, and somebody's hand goes up, and as soon as you call on that, and this is what everybody does, but I want you to get away from that. Okay, this is your engagement pro tip. Don't call on people. If you ask for a raise of hands and you call on people, what happens, Hayden and Tanner, when I call on that person? What happens to everybody else?
They're going to turn their brains in. They're just going to be like, nope, I'm done. Check out.
He's got it. I'm done. I'm going to go check the basketball score
Where's
right
my
now.
phone? Yeah.
NBA playoffs are in full swing. What is the score here?
Right.
They are now what? Disengaged. Right? Because he's got it. He's going to comment. And that especially happens, you got to be aware as a teacher of the same 2 or 3 guys that are commenting. people, as soon as they start talking, people are going to tune out. But what's happening when I say, here's my question, think about it. And now I want you to talk to the person you're sitting next to about that for 2 minutes, ready, go. And you can even put a timer up on the screen. I've seen teachers do this all the time, where it's counting down, and you just sit there.
That's great. Yeah.
What about those elders that
they have to talk about it, and they're all doing what you want them to do, and there's 100% engagement now.
Yeah,
that's amazing. Yeah.
So what about those elders that maybe like sitting by themselves, maybe like 2 chairs apart, and that maybe don't feel comfortable, like they don't know which person to talk to? Do you have any tips on that, or are you just saying?
As a teacher, you just point at them and say, you two talk, you two talk, you two talk. Or the people that are really quiet, maybe there's some kind of naturally introverted people, whatever. That's the person I'd be like, what's up? Hey, I'm your partner, right? So
you get up to it. Yeah.
As a teacher.
So you engage them.
Yeah, I'd walk up to that person you see being quiet or maybe not talking to someone, because that might happen. That happens. And you walk up to him and be like, yeah, I'll be your partner. Or I'll jump in as a, 3 of us here or something. So, because it's going to be awkward at first, I'm telling you.
Oh, totally.
They're all going to sit and look at each other, and they're going to try to figure out who they group up. Well, do I got to talk to you? Do I got to talk to you? And it'll start naturally happening, but just let it happen. And if they struggle with this, be like, all right, time out. So we're struggling with figuring out who we're sitting next to. So I'm going to put you together real quick or whatever.
Yeah.
And you might just say, sometimes they're kind of naturally grouped up in 2s or 3s. You might just say, hey, I don't care if it's 2 of you or 3 of you, just the 2 or 3 of you sitting next to you, just kind of group up and talk, right? And then you let that happen and stick to your 2 minutes. Don't let it go beyond that. Whatever you said, 60 seconds, 2 minutes, and you'll start talking, right? A way to like force this, if you wanted to, and I've done this in school before, is you're going to arrange the rows where people come in and they're like facing each other. Or this is the brother that was on one of your shows earlier. They're in the round tables, like they're awkwardly looking at each other anyway. So they're going to have to talk, right? So you can kind of force it if you need to, with like, okay, well, see all the chairs that are across from each other. I'm going to make you stare at someone that you're going to talk to. You might have more exit from Elders Quorum if you do that, so don't do that. But the round table suggestions, like set up the round tables, the snack time that other brother was talking about, like that is awesome for engagement, by the way. Because if it's a circle, they're already facing each other. Yeah. And they're all, a circle brings out is a powerful symbol too, because it's also saying we're all equals here, right? We're all looking at each other. So you're gonna have a circle is natural.
You're basically King Arthur and his knights at that point.
Yes, that's the point, is they were all equals. So and so if you can circle them up, that's even better with the round table, because they're already just the circle tables are going to up engagement like crazy too, but they'll figure it out. And as a teacher, you might have to say, hey, okay, you two, or you saddle up to someone and be like, what's up? I'm your partner here. Let's talk about this hey, we got 2 minutes. Let's talk about it. And you might have to kind of bounce around. And as a teacher, I love like sliding up to them, you sidle up to them, and you're kind of getting involved in it or listening to them anyway. Right. Yeah. And so, and then you're just kind of bouncing around as a teacher. You're like, man, those guys said some good things. Hey, and then now comes the share part. Think, pair, share. So you're giving them a second to think about it, and you're saying, you got 2 minutes to talk to the person you're sitting next to. You got 100% engagement going on. Now to stop that, because that can get out of control and gets a little noisy, you got to be okay with that, right? What you want is engagement and discussion. So it's cool if it's noisy, right? Like, it's okay. So you're not disrupting anybody. So it's gonna be all these conversations happening. And then you're gonna say loudly, as a teacher, I got a super loud voice, you can tell, you're gonna say, hey, if you have a timer, this is where this comes in. I've seen a guy that I used to have like a whistle or a gong or something. That's I actually kind of stupid. So
gong.
You're not an animal, right? I'm not gonna whistle. So you just say, hey, all right, brother, I'm gonna give you, we're gonna bring it back in 10 seconds. 10, 9, and that's all you have to say. And then you get down, you're like 3, 2, 1. All right, and then you just start talking. All right, and this is where the share part comes in. Who would like to share something that they talked about? And this is where I want to talk people get their moment. They get to share, or sometimes they'll share what their partner says, but that's what you want right now is that you're giving an opportunity for 1 or 2 or 3 people to share what everyone was just talking about. And you might be like, hey, Brother Smith right here brought up a great point that I hadn't thought about, and I'm going to share for him, or he might share.
Yeah.
Well, and then you let a couple people share.
Yeah.
And move on. You just had 100% engagement. Everybody was talking. A couple people get a share. And if the same people start sharing, this is why you as a teacher, and you don't want them to continue to maybe hijack that a little bit, they're getting a little share happy, then that's why you as a teacher, you sidle up to those conversations that are happening. You start, instead of saying, who wants to share, you just say, hey, Brother Smith, I was sitting in on that conversation. Man, you brought up a good point there. Would you be willing to share that for me? Or you start, that's when you call on people now. Hey, could you share what we discussed? Because everybody's been discussing, right?
Right. Well, and I think that's a great point, because I think I heard once, like, for a lot of people, a majority of people, learning does not happen if someone is just talking at you. It happens as you are discussing and engaging with those ideas, you know. And so you are giving them ample space and opportunity in those lessons to actually engage with the idea and apply it to themselves. So you're taking that personal revelation that you had, and you're saying, all right, here is my idea, what I wanted you to learn. Now you go and you talk about it and figure out what you want to learn from that, you know, and then you give that takeaway, and then you can share it with the class, you know, after you've discussed it with a couple of partners. I think that's great. That's amazing.
And think about engagement, man. Let's say you have 30 people, just for guy math here.
Yeah.
You have 30 people in your quorum. And when you call on someone, like traditionally you're doing, you've got one person answering, 29 people checked out potentially, or the opportunity for them to check out, disengaged. When you do this, you do the think, pair, share. You're saying, here's a question. We'll give you 2 minutes to discuss that with the person you're sitting next to. You now have, and if they all find a partner, you have 30 people in there. You have 15 engaging discussions on topic happening.
Yeah.
And then you share 1 or 2 of the highlight. Hey, somebody share with me what that was really good. She want to share that. And you move on to your next question, your next thing. All right, let's share a scripture. I'm going to bring you back in 10 seconds. Hey, 10, 9, blah, blah. Sometimes they do it 5. Hey, let me bring you back, brother, in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're moving on.
Yeah.
And they'll just get used to that cadence. They'll get used to you doing that, right?
I love that. Yeah. Okay, so real quick.
Is going to up your engagement.
So what do you say to those people who are like, all right, so we've handled, I think, most of lessons. So what about those people? You always have them in the quorum that they raise their hand and they try and just spout something that's way off topic. Usually you'll have a guy in the back who's just like, you know, and you're like, oh yeah, brother so and so, and he's just like, Doctrine and Covenants 84, you know, whoso is faithful in obtaining these 2 priesthoods, you know, and then they just go skewing like a bunch of quotes, and you're just like, whoa, where are we going? Whoa, yeah. How do you corral that? Like, what are your tips on that?
The nice thing with the think, pair, share too is when you're sharing, if it turns into that, just do the first thing I said. You start calling the people you want to talk, because you can be like, hey, Brother Smith over here, and he might be up there like, you know, and you're just kind of pretending to not see him a little bit, or you'll say things like, hey, I appreciate your hand, Brother Smith. I want to give so and so. I want to hear so and so answer here, because you know, I was listening to their discussion. There's something really good, and so you can just kind of skip over them a little bit naturally. Start calling on people instead of them every time, or you might even say politely like, oh, hey, brother Smith, I see you back there. I see your hand up. I'll get to you. Or we'll catch you on the next one. Like that's not rude.
Or you can pull a Jen Psaki like, hey, we're gonna circle back to you.
Yep. I want to hear what Brother Smith said, because I heard them talking about some really good stuff here, and I want to get to that. Yeah. But you know, I'll catch you on the next one, buddy, or whatever. Totally. Or just pretend you don't see him. It's okay. It's okay to be like, you know, I'm picking you, right? So I think you'll be fine to say, you know, or we'll get to you. So if they've shared once or twice, you know, let them, you kind of get through it.
Yeah.
And then after that, you know, I'm gonna give somebody else an opportunity. Worst case scenario, you set a couple ground rules as a teacher. It's okay for you to do that. It's your lesson, right? You get to say, you know, hey, I want an opportunity for everyone. Hey, Brother Smith, I see your hand. I want an opportunity for everybody to talk here. So I'm gonna call on so and so. Just start calling on people. It's fine. You'll get through it. You know, they'll comment a couple times, but they won't hijack the lesson. They'll bring it back. And you know, if they're really taking it sideways, I've seen that happen before in lessons. And it's okay to politely interrupt them if you need to, and just say, hey, I want to get back on topic. It's really important for me to get to this next question, and you know, so I'm gonna bring it back here, or let's bring this back, and you know, thanks, brother, and let's bring this back to this next question and move on. Right? Yeah. You're leading that discussion, so it's okay for you to actually do that as the teacher, right? You don't need to sit in silence while this brother and that brother start arguing or take it off topic or whatever.
Right.
You know,
Or one
you're
of them
managing-
starts taking us to collab and we're like, whoa, whoa.
No, whoa, let's bring it.
Yeah.
So it's okay to rein it in politely. And I think it's fine as a teacher to politely say, hey, you know, I appreciate the discussion there. We're gonna get right back to this. And
Yeah.
that's back to the other point of that simple PowerPoint, something in front of them keeps their eyes up front where it should be. It's less likely that you're gonna get off topic when you're prepared and you have something up front for them to look at.
Yeah.
They see your bullet points and they know that you need to get through that. So you know, ask volunteers. At first you can say who wants to share something that you talked about, and then if it gets kind of the same-ish people, you just start picking people that aren't saying anything. So worst case scenario though, I mean, you know, a couple people share, but everyone's been doing what you want them to do. They've all been talking about the topic that's what you want them to learn, and you have 100% engagement now. It's an instant way to get 100% engagement in any lesson. All right, here's the
That's
question.
incredible.
Everyone talk to the person you're sitting next to.
That's awesome.
That will be a memorable lesson, I promise you.
Yeah.
And now you couple that with, I greeted you at the door, I was prepared, I made a connection, and I'm doing this think, pair, share thing with every question I have. Now you don't need to do it with every question, but you can and you should if you want high engagement, right?
Yeah.
Ask the question, think about it for a second, talk to the person you're sitting next to for 1 minute, 2 minutes. If you're short on time, just narrow that discussion time down. 60 seconds, talk to your neighbor about that, ready, go.
Yeah.
Let them do it. I'm gonna bring you back in
Yeah.
5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and we're moving on. Let's go. And we're moving. And I think that simple thing right there will get your engagement where you want it, and it'll keep you moving through the lesson. The lesson will be memorable. It keeps you on topic and focused on what you want them to learn.
Okay. I mean, I think you pair that with round tables and snacks and
Oh,
like
I'm
counseling. Mm,
You have
Yeah.
some,
forget about
dude.
it.
You get the round tables. You get the snacks in the middle. You give a chance for that connection, and like the other brother that was on here talked about, and then you you lead that discussion with questions. Do the think, pair, share thing. Greet them at the door. Boy, I don't.
Could you
that is
imagine?
You will have a fully engaged elders quorum, whether they want it or not at that point.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm super excited to see this in my own ward. I'm gonna bring this up with my Elders Quorum presidency because I think that'd be amazing. I think that'd be a totally different Elders Quorum at that point.
Yeah. And this is what good teachers do. Like I said, when I work at a high school here, if you walk around any of these teachers, they're doing that little thing often, and it translates so well. But they don't teach this in the church a lot, or
Yeah.
it's just kind of the traditional, like, and we've been taught that through the old methods of, here's the manual, and that was great, for people that needed that when they're struggling to teach, but lead that discussion and put some questions in there and focus on what you want them to learn versus what's being taught, and then the think, pair, share, talk to your neighbor about it, and then let's share that just, it builds such a high engaging lesson that is more likely for people to walk out of there and going, I got the message today. That was really good. And I got to talk about it with someone. And the other thing is they get to meet people. You want those guys to connect and talk anyway. What they're doing now is sitting in rows. Get rid of that. Get the circle tables, for crying out loud. They're there in your building, I promise.
Yeah.
So if not,
Everyone's got them. Yeah.
we're going the chairs up, for crying out loud, right? Like,
Yeah.
and they're meeting each other. They're talking, and they're probably sitting next to different people every time you teach, so they get the opportunity to connect and discuss what you want them to with someone different every time. And man, I'll tell you, in those kind of lessons, I've been able to learn things about people in my ward and have a great discussion with people that I didn't know anything about that brother. And I'm like, man, that was good. This guy knows his stuff. Like, so the next time we get a chance to do that, like, that's a guy I'm excited to talk to or sit by, or, we made a connection there that was on topic. Like, bingo. It's great.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we're getting close to time. Any other pro tips or anything else that you'd have? Any other advice for Elders Quorums?
Yeah, I think there's been such good material here, and I love that these are just kind of building on each other. So if you haven't yet, this is just another reminder to the viewer, go back and start with the other videos on Elders Quorum that you guys have done. And
you're plugging our channel.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's just clarify. We didn't pay off Justin
No,
before.
no, they didn't. Yeah. So I don't have any Salty Saints merch. That would be
Yeah.
legit though. Yeah. But there's just some, especially with the one with the brother with the snacks and the Google shared Google Doc about what we really need to talk about. How can we help each other?
Yeah.
What are some relevant things we need to talk about instead of just diving into the lesson? Get those round tables out, greet them at the door. Do a few of these little pro tips, and there will be a palpable change in your Elders Quorum. And I think as a teacher, teaching is the greatest calling. That is such a fun calling, and you've been selected by revelation, set apart, given the opportunity to teach that Elders Quorum. It's a great honor, a powerful position, a great place to be in. And man, that Elders Quorum, if you think about them as the heartbeat of your ward and the untapped potential that's there for those, middle-aged brethren maybe that are certainly struggling with something in life, and all of them, at different levels, and you get to engage them in a lesson where you get to have a great, engaging gospel discussion with connections with each other. And man, that's just so powerful. And so what a wonderful opportunity as a teacher. So have confidence to do these things, have the courage to try a couple of these things. Your engagement will go up. It's your blessing and opportunity as a teacher to have that inspiration that comes to you. But hopefully a couple of these little pro tips will guide you right to have some better engagement and harness the power that's just, sitting there maybe unengaged or disengaged at this point in your Elders Quorum, and breathe that back to life again. I know this will work. I know this stuff will work. I've seen it. I've done it for, over 2 decades in education. It works. So
Awesome.
I'm excited for you to try it. So have the courage to try it.
Well, hopefully we can
Amazing.
wake up a few more Elders Quorums.
You bet.
Yeah. Until next time, I'm Hayden Holm. This is Justin Keat and
Thank you.
Tanner Holm, and this is Salty Saints.